let's talk. It's been a month, let me tell you. The last 3 weeks have been really busy for me, but I want to talk about something, kind of interesting lesson I learned these past 3 weeks, but this lesson really starts a year ago. So, a year ago, I attended my first Laurels Prize tournament, LPT, here in Onstera. And for those of you who don't know, this is a giant event. It's a display event where artisans come and they get table space and they get a chance to display the art they're working on, their research, and they get a chance to talk with other artists and talk with Laurels. However, the event is not for Laurels, it is not a tournament, and there are no prizes. So don't ask me how they came up with LPT. I honestly don't know the story behind that name. Good event. There's a lot I can talk about that's not relevant for this video. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about starts with a contrast, because last year I had, I don't know, probably 8 or 9 people come by my table. Now, a couple of those people were people who were stopping at every table. I had the Royals come by. I had the Autocrat come by. These were people who were stopping at every table. And, of course, I had a specific Laurel come by my table who had signed up to speak to me because of the art I was working on. So that's all kind of part of the process with LPT. And then there were a couple of artisans who I knew who wanted to come talk about my art, which is about what you expect from that event. And there were maybe 2 or 3 people who came by probably more to talk to me as Ivo than to talk to me as an artist. Nothing wrong with that, just they were there for social conversation, just a few minutes of hi, how you doing, which is fine. I'm giving that as a context. Now take that whole block of information, put it on a shelf for me. Let's go back 3 weeks. As you know, if you've been following this channel, I have stepped in to learn rapier combat here in the SCA. Rapier practices are on Wednesdays, so Wednesday morning I get up, I throw my kit in the car, I go to work, and then when I'm done with work, I drive to practice, and I have my kit in the car, so I practice. Getting my kit assembled is still an ongoing process. I don't have my whole kit. I still need to get a few things. One of the things I need to get, by the way, is a proper fighting shirt that offers the protection required by SCA rapier rules. And that'll be relevant in a second. So, 3 weeks ago, I got up, I got in the car, I did not put my armor in the car, and I went to work. And then, when work was over, I went to practice. Now you're probably thinking, oh, he forgot his armor. No, I didn't forget my armor. I made a conscious decision not to bring my armor. I wanted to go to practice, partially because I wanted to talk with someone, partially because I wanted to ask a few questions, but I knew, and I had told people, I am not in a good headspace for someone to put a weapon in my hand. For those of you who only see me on video and don't see me next to other people a lot, you probably don't fully appreciate how exponentially larger I am than most of the other rapier fighters. If I misjudge a lunge or a thrust, I am putting 400 plus pounds of energy into that strike. And right now, as new as I am, as green as I am, as unskilled as I am, I just was not in a headspace where I wanted to tackle that. I'm like, I am not going to sit here and try and process, am I doing this safely? And I just said, you know what? I'm not doing this tonight. So I went to practice, ostensibly just to talk to one person, ask another person questions, and hang out for a little bit. And that was fine. There were no hard feelings. I did get a couple people who commented that was probably the smart thing to do. No one gave me any grief about that decision. Fast forward a week. This time I packed my kit because I was in a good headspace, so I wanted to go fight. And I drive to work, and then I get off work, and then I drive down to practice. And as I pull up to the rec center where practice is held at, it's dark. I don't mean it's closed dark. I mean the lights were out for 2 blocks in all directions. I flipped out my phone and I found out that like a city municipal junction box 2 blocks away had blown out. And the whole place was black, like no power. But a bunch of the fighters had said, hey, we're going to go meet up at this restaurant just about a mile away if anyone wants to go hang out. I'm like, well, I'm already down here. It's a half-hour drive home. Yeah, sure. So turned the car around and I went that way. Fast forward a week, and this time I pack my armor. This time I show up and the lights are on, thank God. And I walk in. And remember how I said I don't have a fighting shirt, right? I have to borrow one from one of the larger fighters. Walk in the door, he didn't come. So I can't fight. Like that's a non-negotiable in SCA rules. You have to have a certain amount of protection on your torso to fight rapier. I didn't have that on the shirt I was wearing, and there was no loaner gear that was going to fit me for torso and upper body protection. So I driven all that way for nothing. It is what it is, So effectively, for 3 completely unrelated reasons, 3 weeks where I never picked up a sword. You might consider that 3 lost weeks, except I want you to go back a year ago, and you remember what I said about the people that came and visited me at my table, right, when I was at LPT? Well, this past weekend, i.e. yesterday as I'm filming this, was my second time at Laurel's Prize Tournament. And I had 2 Laurels come by. I had the Autocrat come by to say hi. And a couple of fellow artists came by and talked with me, all about what you would expect for LPT and the concept of this a chance for artists to come geek out with other artists. That's all normal. Completely separate from that, I had probably close to 17 people come by to talk to me socially. And you know what they all had in common? They all knew me through rapier. Some of them knew me through rapier practice. Some of them knew me through the rapier community, the larger rapier community, that even though I've not fought them yet, they knew I was practicing rapier. They followed my social media post, and they interact with me on that level. And it wasn't even that they were talking about rapier. It's that they were seeing someone they identified as one of their own, and I was not talking with anyone else. They didn't interrupt anything. But when each of them came by, they made a point of waving and saying hi and asking how I was doing and, sharing a joke, funny story. A couple of them sat down just to chit-chat for a minute. And it was a stark contrast from my experience a year ago. Not saying that made a year ago bad. It didn't. That's not the point of the event. But that contrast highlighted something very important for me. The most stark contrast is that my experience at Laurel's Prize Tournament this year was made vastly different because of my rapier community connections. And let's be clear, they are a community, which is not something I had factored in. I picked up rapier for the very specific purpose. I remember this conversation with my wife. I remember having this conversation, and there was no ambiguity about it. I wanted an activity that increased my physical levels of. I wanted a physical activity. I wanted something that would increase my endurance, that would challenge me. I wanted something that I had never done before, and I wanted something that I would have to work at. And I wanted a competitive environment. I did not want to go lift weights. I did not want to go and there's nothing wrong with archery. I practice archery. I'm an archer. I've got an award for my work with archery. But archery is not inherently competitive. You're competing with yourself. I wanted something where I was facing people, different people, individual people. That's the way my mind works. That's all about me. There's nothing wrong with that. Those are valid goals. Those are personal things. Those are the personal check boxes that you're allowed to set for yourself. There's nothing wrong with saying, these are the things I want to do with this activity that I'm doing. But what came with that, I was absolutely not expecting. The rapier community here in Wiesenfeuer, and our particular practice is a joint practice, so we also practice with the Barony and Namron, who literally is next door to Wiesenfeuer. We practice together, and we are a community. And the rapier community here welcome me with open arms, have called me kith and kin pretty much from day one, and have bent over backwards to make sure I feel included and to make sure my input is asked for on certain things, which, has not always been my experience in other groups that I have interacted with. Which is why it's very easy to say that first practice where I didn't bring my armor was a wasted trip. And from a fighting standpoint, it was. I didn't pick up a sword. So I didn't work on footwork. I didn't pick up a sword, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, from that, it's objectively not good for me as a fighter. I had people checking on me. I didn't ask. I wasn't walking around moping. But I had a bunch of different people randomly come up and ask, "Are you all right?" Which I didn't even realize at the time, but it kind of blows me away when I think about it now. And then that night where we all went out to dinner because the power was out, you know what? It was fun to just sit there and chit-chat with people. I'd forgotten how much fun it was to sit down and talk with a community like that. Because the last time I had anything like that was when I was in the chivalric combat arts, and I was with the Shiv fighters. And that was ages ago. And they're also a very different community, I will add. But still, I don't have anything like that in my current pursuits. What I do is very differently structured in a very different type of social construct outside of the rapier community. And this was totally different. This was a different type of gathering, a different group of people who socialized differently, and it was a different type of wonderful, let me tell you. And then the practice where I showed up ready to go with my kit, and the guy I usually borrow the fighting shirt from wasn't there. Yeah, that's again a wasted practice because I didn't. There's nothing I could do. I couldn't fight anyone. But I had, again, a lot of people would come and check on me, and they were asking me questions, and we were just getting to know each other. And then you get to Laurel's Prize Tournament yesterday, and the whole community, it wasn't just me who was getting this. It's every rapier fighter you bump into was talking to another rapier fighter, and I was part of the mix. It was pretty bonkers. And that's not to say the rapier were the only people I socialized with. That's not accurate at all. But they had a very distinctly unique type and level of energy in their engagement. Now, why am I sharing this with you? This is all about me. What do you have to do with any of this? And there's a couple of things I want you to take away from this. Number one if you're new to the SCA, understand that within the society, there are sub-communities. And, excuse me, the hood is driving me nuts. Within the society, there are sub-communities. And each one is different. And each one has different strengths, different weaknesses, different pros, different cons. But those communities may be tremendous resources for you, just as a human being, just as someone to go, and you may not be good at what you're doing. Trust me, there are plenty of things I've done that I sucked at, but the people involved there were glad to just have me around, because it's cool having, they'd say it's cool having you around. It doesn't matter if you're good or even passable at something. You tried, you had fun, sit down and chat with us. That's a really cool feeling. And if you're looking into getting into the fighting arts or missile combat or maybe scroll painting, you hang out with a bunch of other scroll painters, or calligraphy, or maybe there's a guild that practices, one of the arts and sciences in your area. That is a community. Those may be opportunities for you to form very unique and very different types of bonds than you would be able to form in just the general larger SCA. And the other end of this, if you are feeling perhaps a little punchy on this, have a little bit of extra energy, or you're feeling brave, if you're part of a group or activity and you don't feel like there is a lot of community, maybe all they need to kind of start a community, to kind of get that initial spark to start a fire, is for you to say, hey, do we want to go out to dinner afterward? Or who wants to hang out? Or, do we want to go, like, maybe hit the zoo tomorrow or this weekend or something? Maybe it just needs one little nudge to get a couple people talking outside of the usual hustle of whatever we're doing. I've seen that happen. I've helped build a few communities that way. The important thing is that community is such an important part of the society. And not just at the society level, not just at the kingdom level, or even the local level. It's important at the individual group level, at the individual activity level, because the community around you has a rapier fighter, has a chivalric fighter, has an artisan, has an officer, has an administrator. Those are vital, but they're also wonderful. Look for them, find them, engage with them. Learn from them, and I hope that you get the opportunity to grow from them, because they've been absolutely essential in helping me become the person I am in the SCA. So, thank you very much for joining me. I will see you all at the next event, but until then, goodbye, and God bless. If there are two things I've learned that drive videos these days, it's controversy and engagement. Now, I am never going to fly the controversy flag on a regular basis. It's not what I'm here for. It's not the content I want to make, and I really don't think it helps any of us. But let's do engagement. If you like this video, please go down in the comments and leave a comment. Make sure to share the video. And last but not least, easiest of all, make sure to like the video. That helps drive the algorithm. It helps get the video views and helps promote this material. Thank you very much.